The Revolution was televised for 4 hours and 9 minutes. It is Wei Ting and Big Johnny P back here. You're stuck with me. Wei, how are you? I love what you've done with the place.
Oh, thank you, thank you. He is back, everybody. Yes, the long-awaited return. John, I was gonna start this podcast by saying happy birthday,
Nope,
but
not true.
it is no longer your birthday. We are
No.
starting this at about 12:17 a.m. Right after AEW Revolution. But on behalf of all of us, thank you for spending your birthday watching and talking about this show.
Well, there was no one I wanted to spend my birthday with more than you and Ash Avildsen for many, many promotional spots throughout this Revolution pay-per-view event.
This will be remembered both as a night of a lot of wrestling, a lot of very good wrestling, and also the night of Ash Avildsen. Yes.
Yes, we'll talk about Ash, the best supporting director on this particular pay-per-view. We're going to be getting into this show that went down from the crypto.com arena. If ever there is any kind of arena that I don't want to identify by name, it's that.
Unfortunately, you're probably going to have to um, say a lot more unsavory names for arenas in your future. That's what
I'm
I
sure
think.
that will be coming. I wonder if they'll default on the naming rights and have to, revert back to Staples or something else, some other brand that will take over this arena at some point. We'll find out. But tonight they were in Los Angeles, California, with a final number from WrestleTix at 11,322. That's a tremendous number for. If WWE was running this arena, that would be a tremendous number. This was AEW's highest attendance since All In last August. And my first question to you, Wei, is what do you attribute this great attendance figure for when AEW is not drawing numbers like this, even for its pay-per-view events? And do you look at it? Do you have any takeaway of what caused such a great number here? And is part of it the LA market, or are there other factors?
I think it could be the strength of the card. I think the LA market, perhaps, being a bigger area that for you to draw from, might be a bigger factor too. But I also think like AEW has done a really good job of maintaining this sort of standard of quality for all of their pay-per-views. And this one certainly didn't change that. Whether or not you might be watching the AEW product week to week live, I do feel like much like takeovers at one time, like these events are sort of can't miss. If you're a wrestling fan, you should be watching these.
The depth of the card was the biggest driver for me in terms of interest for the show, but you and I are probably not the average person that might be considering whether or not to buy a ticket to the show. I think there were many factors, and as much as it's been somewhat of a maligned program, I do think Moxley and Cope has to be given some of that credit. That was your very clear-cut main event, but with a ton of depth on this show as well. So you can have a lot of factors. I cannot look at this as, I'm sure some might look at this as, hey, this is the first pay-per-view they've had since going on Max. I just don't know if that sounds like a bit of a stretch to attribute like such a great pay-per-view number when this has not been indicated in any of like the week-to-week TV in terms of tickets going higher. But this was a big achievement for AEW to draw this number in LA and also getting out a lot of various celebrities, which would have interesting tie-ins on this show. We go back, we turn the clock back many, many, many hours to the start of the pre-show with Renee Paquette, Jeff Jarrett, RJ City, and Paul Walter Hauser. And among the people dropping by the panel were Damaris Lewis and Kelly Berglund from Queen of the Ring. Lewis playing Babs Wingo and Berglund playing Nell Stewart. And they were both very excited to be attending a pro wrestling event tonight. And then later, Harley Cameron and QT Marshall would stop by. Our first match of the evening, Blake Christian and Lee Johnson against Hologram and Komander. And they mentioned that Alex Abrahantes in the whole skirmish leading into this suffered a shiner, which Taz was right on top of to explain that a shiner is a black eye. And they did not do a close-up, but I didn't even need a close-up to see that this dude's eye, unless he ran into Travis Scott as well, this thing looked horrible.
Who knows what Alex Abrahantes might get up to in his
I
spare
don't
time?
know, but
I
this
can
this
only imagine.
Yeah, this did not look great. So anyway, crowd was very alive for Hologram, especially when he got tagged in. There was one messed up spot where he went for a Poison Rana to Blake Christian on the edge of the apron, and Hologram essentially just took a back bump and everyone seemed fine, but not the smoothest Poison Rana of the night. But there would be many more Poison Ranas to come on this show. From there, everyone just went into various sequences. Komander took out Lee Johnson with a Rana, sending him to the floor, and then Hologram saves Komander while in the Muda lock, and Komander comes off Hologram's back for a destroyer to Johnson, follows with a top rope Asai to the floor, and Hologram wins with the 450, pinning Blake Christian in 9 minutes and 55 seconds.
Yeah, but I would say an overall fun, high-flying showcase, a little bit sloppy at parts, but overall just, satisfying opening match.
Not at the level, if you do see the Hologram Dralistico match from Saturday, that was just out of this world. This was not at that level, but a fun opener nonetheless with kind of your lucha influence here. Then Renee is inside of the arena and brings out director Ash Avildsen of Queen of the Ring to promote the movie. It's a movie for underdogs, and giving up isn't in our vocabulary. We've only got 4 more days in theaters. This is an indie film. We aren't going to give in or give up. And he is essentially pleading with you, the wrestling fan, go watch this movie, please. And I have never heard a movie plug that was so dire in terms of please go. Whatever their probably very limited estimates were for this film, it has to be well below that. I don't think this film is even playing in Canada, to give it perspective. But regardless, this was quite the push that we are not going to reach our intended goals, but hey, go see this movie if you can.
I mean, I wonder what those goals could actually be. I mean, they're distributing.
It was a very limited release.
Yeah. So it could just be a way of that he, this is how he feels to best promote this movie, is by begging us to support a cause. But I actually thought what he did on Wednesday was far more effective.
Yes. And yeah, they said 4 more days. Is that its whole run?
I don't know. I don't know what they consider.
That's what he said here. He was like, we only have 4 more days in theaters.
Okay.
That's a very limited run. Taz
so that tells me I can wait until it's on streaming in 4 days. Is that it?
I don't know. He didn't promote that either.
Oh, we don't know.
Taz says the band should run for mayor.
He might get elected somewhere at this point.
Lee Moriarty, Shane Taylor, Sean Dean, and Carly Bravo of the Infantry taking on Daniel Garcia, Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly with Matt Menard on commentary. They get the advantage on Garcia for a long period of time, and then we go up, and the Ops are taking in the show. They got 3 last-minute tickets in their own box, and man, they ended up staying in here the entire show because we would next see them in the main event, still eating their popcorn. Just the 3 of them. I don't think a word was exchanged over these 4+ hours between these 3, but team unity, a team building exercise on Sunday night for the Ops.
Seems like a comfy place to sit. Why wouldn't you be there? They got chips.
I mean, these seem like my kind of guys to watch a wrestling show with. No one talks.
Are you sure you wouldn't want to watch a wrestling show with Leslie Jones after tonight?
Dude, I'll have plenty to talk about with Leslie Jones. She would bring me out of my shell, I think, at one of these shows.
She should be the main op.
There were a few celebrities in here who I think could have won jobs by the end of the night. So the Undisputed Kingdom run wild. Cole hits the Ushigoroshi on Moriarty, and then as he's going for the Panama Sunrise, Garcia tags himself in to the ire of Cole and applies the Dragon Tamer as Cole is just looking at him. Cole super kicks Shane Taylor so he can't break up the submission, and Lee Moriarty taps out at 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Garcia hoists up the TNT title in front of Cole. Garcia was not hoisting up Moriarty's ROH Pure Championship that he maybe could have created a shot for by submitting the champion, and we're just going to overlook that fact. But yes, Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole coming to a episode of TV near you.
Yeah. Good. That's my review. Like I honestly, I have very mild excitement for Garcia and Cole. It feels to me like a very standard match, not that much to grab my attention in a sea of a lot of very good things that do capture my attention. So it was fine.
Well, you know what caught my attention?
What's that?
CT Fletcher next in the Hurt Syndicate training vignette where they went to his attic's gym and they're working out, and we get CT Fletcher, who runs this gym. Quite a remarkable individual, this CT Fletcher, 65 years young. And he's just cutting a promo, calling everyone fat asses. The Hurt Syndicate will beat your fucking asses. And he ends it by stating, the champions are here. Shut the fuck up and watch this shit. MVP nearly worked himself out of a mouthpiece job because with the exception of the big boss, Rick Ross, CT Fletcher might be my new favorite future manager for any AEW act. But it has to be on pay-per-view. He cannot be censored.
Well, I think he should be calling play-by-play on the show.
Oh, he would have been great for this Hurt Syndicate match. It would have been the best part of that match.
I think he should actually take Excalibur's job.
Yeah, that should be their new shirt.
Fucking Irish whip. It'll be great.
Motherfucking Poison Rana. The champions are here. Shut the fuck up and watch this shit.
This is great. This is awesome.
Yeah. He was great. Mm-hmm. It was a tremendous addition here on the 0 Hour. Chris Jericho and Gravity for the ROH Championship. So Gravity, the younger brother of Bandito, which Excalibur mentions is the worst kept secret in professional wrestling. His mother and sister are in the front row. God bless this man's mother, the owner of the one and only Gravity t-shirt. And they are there to watch their son and brother compete against Chris Jericho for the ROH World Championship on less than 24 hours notice. And Jericho enters with Big Bill and Brian Keith, and before the match can even begin, he is beaten down with a bat, and Aubrey Edwards just throws this out, leading to Bandito running down to help his brother. Didn't have any other backup, so both brothers just get beaten down. Big Bill gives the biggest choke slam in the world as Gravity was very much intact here. And then we get shots of the mother and sister near tears, and Jericho rips off the mask of Gravity. Tons of heat for this. So Gravity is covering his face, so he's prone for the Judas effect. Then the mother and sister enter the ring as Jericho holds up the bat and Excalibur is yelling, "These are civilians!" And he's threatening them, holds up the mask, and gives the middle finger to the crowd. I thought this was a great angle, a really great angle. And I think the more serious edge that they've added to the learning tree has been so welcome for the last couple of weeks. I thought this was a great angle, and the way this gets to Jericho and Bandito with Gravity thrown in there, I thought the mother and sister added something as well, and you got way more mileage than doing a 6-minute squash here for Jericho.
I thought it was a great idea to add heat to the Bandito program, by attacking his family member who happens to be a wrestler that you infrequently use. I will say it was an angle that certainly made you pay more attention than really just kind of like a standard match. I would say having Chris Jericho on a 0 hour in itself, I thought ran the risk, if they were going to do a straightforward match, ran the risk of perhaps devaluing a Chris Jericho, whatever that means at this point. But still, it was, I think this was a much better usage for everybody involved. I will say, I thought the bat shots were a little too frequent. So something like a baseball bat to me, like, should be used once, twice in a match.
With barbed wire wrapped around it.
Even without barbed wire, in real life, you're not delivering multiple baseball bats to somebody and they're not showing the effects of it, So I thought it was maybe used a little too much, but overall, very effective.
Yeah, and I mean the tease here of maybe title versus mask with Bandito as well, incorporating the mask element to all of this. I thought this was a very strong angle that they shot here. Renee and RJ City are then in the studio area, and the celebrities have all come out on this Sunday night for Revolution, and we get into the insight from rapper Young Gravy, who has never attended pro wrestling before, who knows absolutely nothing about pro wrestling, and said, "Yeah, we understand you've been in the back hanging out with people." And he says, "Yeah, my man." And he looks at Renee. I hope I get these letters right. MJF? yeah, MJF. This man had nothing to provide. I am all for showing your celebrities. Show them in the arena. We don't need to give them all a microphone. If they have nothing to share, which, with all due respect to young and old Gravy out there, this man had nothing to exhibit for us.
Is Young Gravy really a celebrity? I mean, I maybe I'm probably just showing my lack
This
of
is where you and I
knowledge.
explain we've never heard of Young Gravy, and we're going to be told, dude, you haven't been on the gravy train, man. This guy is revolutionizing synthetic rap
Yeah, yeah,
on the
okay.
underground.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot of fans. This was like one of the tougher interviews that I think Renee Paquette has ever had to do. At least in his AEW career, in her AEW career, and I could only imagine what RJ City was truly thinking about as this interview was going on, trying to pull teeth here out of this guy to just say something. Like he basically said, MJF was a really nice guy, to which like the others kind of had to like pretend to be shocked by, because he's usually supposed to be an asshole in character. And beyond that, like, what are we doing here? We're talking to somebody. We're giving like what 4 minutes to a guy who has never seen a wrestling match before.
Yeah.
Like, how desperate should we really be? Oh,
Just show him in the crowd. Just say, hey, is that Young Gravy? That is Young Gravy. Like, we don't need to hear from all these people. You can showcase your quote unquote celebrities in different ways. My thought was that both RJ and Renee were imagining being on the final stage of Catch 23, and they have 18 minutes left.
that this is where improv skills definitely come in handy. Yes, Young Gravy
And that
interviews.
Young Gravy. Johnny TV and the MXM collection against Big Boom AJ, Mark Briscoe, and Orange Cassidy. And boy, Big Boom AJ did not come to LA alone. He's joined by Big Justice, the Rizzler, and half of New Jersey in the front row, all of which he went up and hugged and shook hands with.
The
on his way to the ring.
Rizzler dressed as Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. Yep. So Orange Cassidy poses with Mason and Mansoor on the floor when Big Justice and the Rizzler are seated ringside. Taya then crotches Cassidy on the turnbuckle, so they beat on Orange Cassidy. Johnny and Taya made out for an exceptionally long period of time, and then Mason chokeslams Briscoe off the top and hits the Superstation, which was the former Starship Pain. AJ gets the tag. Crowd is into him as he starts delivering his, quote, Costco hammers. Mason then grabs him by the throat. AJ powers to his feet, slams Mason, and then Taya distracts. And this leads to Harley Cameron coming out to take care of Taya. And AJ goes for a power boom to Johnny TV. Mansoor super kicks AJ, and then from the floor comes Big Justice, who comes underneath and powerbombs Mansoor out of the corner. AJ is so impressed with his son for powerbombing Mansoor. And Mason then takes out AJ, eyes Big Justice. The crowd thinks a kid is going to get murdered, but then Briscoe stops him, orange punch, and then the triple power boom onto Mason for the win in 12 minutes and 53 seconds. And then it was anyone who was backstage got to be involved in the post-match. We had the Murder Machines come out. They get stopped by Powerhouse Hobbs. Then Adam Devine and Tony Cavallero from the Righteous Gemstones come into the ring and chokeslam Mansoor, who had to take an ungodly amount of bumps from non-wrestlers here. And then the whole group, Harley Cameron, Powerhouse Hobbs, Adam Devine, Tony Cavallero, Cassidy, Briscoe, and Big Boom AJ all pose in the ring. What a win.
First of all, another instance where I think this Big Boom AJ really very successful. Everything that they did leading up to his hot tag, I thought was very, very well received, very well laid out. Fun exhibition match overall that I think maximize this celebrity that they have with the Costco guys. So that was an example of good usage of celebrity, integrating them into this match. All the shit afterwards, especially with Adam Devine and Tony Cavallero doing a double choke slam to was it Mansoor?
Yes.
I mean, I know it's Mansoor, okay? Like, fine, whatever. But no celebrity who's never done any sort of professional wrestling or really even anything athletic in their life should be stepping over the barricade to deliver a choke slam to an actual performer that's on your roster. I thought that was awful, completely unnecessary.
After Travis Scott last week, if I'm a wrestler, I'm like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing any of this.
It's not even about the danger of it. Like, and Travis Scott was fine. That was a sucker punch. This was like supposed to be a wrestling move. Like, you're supposed to convey. Yes, okay, it was a 2-on-1, but still, a choke slam is somebody's finisher, and you're telling me that anybody can step off the street and deliver a move that's supposed to require like a good deal of strength and training. I thought it killed like whatever immersion, you know, that you might have had for, I mean, even a segment like this. I also think it reeked of like desperation from this company to just want to attach themselves to celebrity. It's a thing we used to criticize so much of the WWE for. And this was, I think, maybe one of the more egregious examples of it. Young Gravy being the next one.
I mean, Young Gravy didn't get any physicality on this show, unfortunately.
No reaction to this either. Like they had them come in and do a double choke slam. They're not, I don't think they're famous enough, like, quite frankly, you know, no tact in the planning or execution. I love the Costco guys. That guy's an actual wrestler. He's done training before, but this was unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't know. The Costco stuff, like, obviously there is a method to their madness, and they feel like this is somebody that gets these reactions. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but the people that are probably going to be kind of tired of these guys are not the people you're necessarily trying to attract with these guys.
I never think they overstep their bounds. Like, he comes in as a wrestler, he's trained, he does like enough that he feels believably capable of.
And probably sells some tickets along the way. It's a pre-show match. This took up no TV time. Like, you really can't be too critical outside of the end result here is like a 15-minute segment.
Sure.
Now, Tony Cavallero, on the other hand,
maybe he's the next. Maybe I'll eat my words. He comes back and works a big program with Kenny Omega.
Onto the pay-per-view we go, and MJF gets his usual opening pay-per-view spot, taking on Hangman Page. So Hangman's music plays, and then it stops, and then MJF's plays, and MJF comes out, and Taz asks, "What was the point of that?" And they relied on mind games. Mind games.
Any technical issue can be, every wrestling company.
Is that why my signal went down multiple times? Was that mind games?
I think every company needs some sort of a character that fucks with the broadcast so that you can blame it on story. Yeah.
Did you hear about ESPN Plus last night and their latest disaster with the UFC?
No, what happened?
ESPN Plus, which, again, we don't have ESPN Plus, so I'm speaking secondhand, sounds like the most disastrous experience for any UFC fan to go through. And last night was just the latest iteration of monumental problems. But we had a first. ESPN Plus just threw out the white flag. They just put the pay-per-view up for free for everybody today.
Wow, really?
They just were like, yeah, this was a disaster last night. So anyway,
go fight.
Contract talks ongoing. MJF and Hangman Page. We get a pop when the bell rings, and Hangman Page has gotten a haircut.
He's got a haircut and he's got a perm, it looks like. I don't know how I feel about this. You know, there's a lot of talk about this guy. MJF talks about him. What is it? Main character energy, main event. What do you call him? Main event something. I don't know if this was a main event haircut for a Hangman Page. A perm and listen, what do I know? I don't know who Young Gravy is. Maybe perms are back in. What did you think?
I mean, it is gardening season as we're approaching the spring months, and maybe this is a bit more manageable.
I think this is more work.
You think so?
He's got to how often? I mean, I guess I don't know. He's got to go back to whatever. I mean, I shouldn't have much of an opinion.
What I like about this guy is that when he is making a decision like this, I don't think he puts any thought into how this affects my wrestling persona at all. I like this idea, is what he's thought. So sure. Early on, MJF sends Page into the corner with an arm wringer and starts attacking the arm. That was his main focus of the match. Page would land a Orihara moonsault to the floor, and he's constantly setting up for the buckshot, but MJF would either retreat to the corner, get out of the way, and Page then stops a pile driver, delivering a deadeye for the first near fall. Then he would stop a heat seeker, lands the buckshot, but Max manages his foot onto the rope. So then he sets up for yet another buckshot. This time Max staggers up to his feet, goes out the opposite side to the floor, and Page misses MJF and runs his shoulder into the steps. And this leads to a buckshot countered into the salt of the earth, attacking the injured arm, and then moves to a crossface, figure fours the arm, and Page's foot finally reaches the rope. And Page, after a moonsault off of the barricade, gets caught, and after multiple reversals, MJF tombstones Page onto a unfolded chair, as they explain that Page's neck might be broken. And MJF teases the countout win. Page makes it in at 9, and MJF yells, "Why you and not me? What's so special about you?" And the Heat Seeker gets caught. He walks into the center, hit with the dead eye, and then Hangman Page nearly murdered this man with the Angel's wings. MJF nearly saw angels after taking this move. And Max staggers up and is hit with the match-ending buckshot lariat in 19 minutes and 10 seconds of a terrific opening match as Page just lays on top of MJF for a prolonged period of time as Max is left laying. And Page and his perm walk off into the sunset.
Clearly, that was the key to victory here. Yeah, that was like one of the most devastating Angels wings I think I've ever seen. Landed face first here. It was beautiful.
I thought he might have knocked him out from this. Like it hit at such a degree, but anyway.
Perfect. I mean, I guess provided that he's actually okay, but like you want a match-ending move or the second to the last move, I suppose, to look that good, right? Very good match, I thought. Had very good storytelling, good memorable action. MJF, I think, was exhibiting definitely some of his like finer qualities here, being able to obviously wrestle a great match, but also just kind of show his whiny side throughout. And Page displayed some great main character energy, excellent selling. Again, maybe not sure about the haircut, but overall I thought a very strong program and strong match that sets Page up for probably a top guy position in the very near future.
Yes, the first of several major babyface wins on this show. And much like Adam Page, many of you don't want to be left hanging no matter what your geographical location is when it comes to a big pay-per-view like AEW Revolution. And that's why we have the best in the business with some main event character energy behind post-wrestling.
Support for this podcast comes from NordVPN. Many of our listeners already use Nord to access cheaper prices to AEW pay-per-views or ad-free international versions of WWE programming. But the benefits of a VPN go beyond streaming, especially as online criminal tactics are becoming increasingly sophisticated. One threat that's been on the rise is SIM swapping, where just a bit of your personal info can help criminals impersonate you to your cell provider and virtually transfer your SIM card to their phone. Using a trusted VPN like Nord, especially when using public Wi-Fi, helps keep your data safe from prying eyes on the same network. Over at nordvpn.com/postwrestling, you can sign up for a 2-year plan for just a few dollars per month and get 4 bonus months with our link. Again, nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Try it with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Stay safe and enjoy all the benefits of a secure internet with NordVPN. I gotta change rooms. I gotta record a new one.
Man, just when you want to exhale, and then you hear about something like SIM swapping.
Oh my God.
More things I've got to worry about. Well,
there's a lot of shit
NordVPN has you covered, everybody. Don't get your SIM swapped. On to Mercedes Moné and Momo Watanabe for the TBS Championship. Momo winning this title shot back at Wrestle Dynasty over Athena, Persephone, and Willow Nightingale. Never in this whole buildup do they mention who she pinned at Wrestle Dynasty either. So some delicate storytelling.
They mentioned it in this match.
Did they mention it in this match?
Yeah. They made specific mention that she pinned Athena and that it was Athena's first pinfall loss.
Well, then I stand corrected. I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Well, this is a rematch from last August's Capital Collision match, and early on, we have Momo kicking out the left arm of Moné, and they fight onto the edge. And Momo's B driver is countered with a powerbomb right to the floor. And then in the rafters is Billy Starks furiously taking notes. Didn't really get a great seat for note taking.
What is a great seat for note taking?
I mean, I think even media get better seats than Billy Starks did here for their notes.
No, she could have joined the ops.
Yeah. The Moneymaker gets stopped, and this time Momo goes for the B driver, hits it, and Moné kicks out at 2. And after the Three Amigos is started by Moné, Momo interrupts to hit her version and then places Moné in the Tree of Woe and starts kicking away at her. And we get Momo with her driving Samato onto the edge. Moné rolls off the buckle into the Statement Maker, and we're getting dueling chants for the women. Momo counters to a crossface and then a crossface chicken wing. When Moné tries to lift her up for the Moneymaker, it's blocked. blocked, and then she has to settle for a powerbomb and a near fall. So after an avalanche Uranagi by Momo off the turnbuckle, she hits her peach sunrise and then starts waffling these kicks. And there was one kick that looked like it sent Mone's head into the ocean as Monet just goes down from this shot, and she recovers, hits this delayed reverse cross as she's waiting for Momo to get into position, and then hits the moneymaker right into the statement maker and submits Momo. 18 and a half minutes this one goes, and we get a closing shot of Billy Starks. With all due respect to Billy Starks, you can't out-note take me.
No, you probably cannot. Yeah, I'd love to see you compare. I thought a good match. You know, those kicks at the end, I'm sure were pretty tough to take for Mercedes, but to me, they did add a level of believability to the match that actually, like,
one of those kicks from Momo looked exceptionally believable.
Yeah, and to me, it did heighten at least my, like, how much I got into the end. I think the match continues Monet's streak of very strong pay-per-view performances. I also think that her moves, like the Meteora, are looking a bit more aggressive. I also loved how she's now kind of using it with enhanced speed, and also from various positions, so it kind of behaves more like a B trigger rather than just a move that's consistently, like, towards the corner. I also think the Moneymaker is, again, didn't look great in this match, but I find it a lot more acceptable when it's being used as a setup to directly chain to the statement maker, which I'm still getting used to calling.
Yeah, I like the match a lot. I thought that it was. I kind of wish Momo had a few more TV matches beyond the Serena Deeb one to kind of like establish the Peach Sunrise and some other elements. But for that said, like, this audience, they were chanting with her, and they kind of got over it just with the body of work, and they got a lot of time. I mean, typically you expect that for a Mercedes match on pay-per-view, but you could certainly look at the rundown of this show, and putting Momo out for that long, they obviously had a lot of faith in this match delivering, and it was a very good match. Not match of the show, but certainly held its spot on the card. Swerve, Strickland, and Ricochet a lot earlier than I expected we were going to be getting this one. And Ricochet comes out with the robe, and we get a shot of Leslie Jones in the crowd. And man, she was here for this match.
Boy, was she. Yeah, she was a part of the match, essentially. And I don't know if she was necessarily supposed to be, but she definitely was having fun. Yeah.
Leslie Jones, who famously auditioned for Saturday Night Live wearing a Korean Zombie t-shirt.
So, is that right? So yeah, she's a big wrestling fan, big combat sports fan, I take it? Like,
she must be. Yeah, I assume so.
Wow.
There's a live band for Swerve.
It really just a drummer.
It was just he was here to play drums for about 10 seconds, and then we went into Swerve's theme.
He drummed along to the theme, but I don't know if it made the impact that maybe they were expecting.
Yeah, we could have had Young Gravy maybe do his theme.
Maybe.
So crowd was very heated for this match. This felt like a big time match for this crowd, and I certainly feel like this felt like one of the top matches on the pay-per-view to this crowd.
This felt like the match. Interestingly enough, that Hollywood was the most invested in.
Yes. So Swerve is stomping him on the floor, and Nana's warning him, and he shoves Nana to the floor. And this leads to a house call by Ricochet as he comes off the guardrail, and Nana leaves and goes to the back in frustration. Leslie Jones is on her feet. She is screaming. Nigel has no idea who this woman is and suggested maybe that's Swerve's mother. And Excalibur explained
that's quite the burn.
That is not Swerve's mother.
Oh,
that is a comedian and actress Leslie Jones. And there's a shot of her just sweating as she is, like, as Ricochet is in control. They should have just had a camera on her for the entire match, or they should have mic'd her up. I would have gladly heard Leslie Jones for 15 minutes than the commentators.
Perhaps. I mean, eventually I think it might have taken away from it. Like, I would love to sit next to Leslie Jones for a wrestling match, but I also think I'd probably be pretty aggravated at, like, if it was a
look
match
at these
really
people
wanted.
Around her. They're having the time of their life because of Leslie Jones. Look at that guy back there. The woman next to her that's half embarrassed, half entertained.
Again, it's fun, but you don't want it to take so much of the focus away, which I think, like, maybe doing like a picture-in-picture idea might.
Well, I had fun with this. Ricochet hits a Dragon Rana, and then Swerve catches him for a power bomb, elevates him up for the power slam, and then it's a Poison Rana delivered to Swerve on the edge of the apron. And Swerve gets placed onto the Spanish desk as Dr. Ken and Paul Walter Hauser are watching on, and he hits him with a Vertebreaker, delivered by Swerve. And then that's followed with a Swerve stomp, but Ricochet kicks out, goes to the eyes, and hits a brainbuster and a 630 splash in his return. Prince Nana is back, grabs the robe, but then Ricochet lands a dive, reclaims the robe, and as Swerve goes for a suicide dive, he is caught by Ricochet in midair and is hit with a Death Valley driver onto the floor with this rough landing. Hits him with the vertigo, and Swerve kicks out. Ricochet looks shocked. So Nana grabs the robe, and we get a exchange of roll-ups, ending with a pair of house calls and the big pressure by Swerve to win in 18 minutes and 10 seconds as he reclaims the robe, gets on his knees to deliver it to Nana, and the two men embrace, and Nana dances as Swerve is now the #1 contender for the AEW title, and a pretty clear direction by the end of this pay-per-view. I thought this match was awesome. The crowd was so into this match that it felt like this was this felt as important of a match on this show to this crowd. And maybe the top match for some.
Perhaps, yeah. I thought the match was excellent. And, man, Ricochet, I never thought he'd be able to command a crowd this way. You know, you're talking about a crowd of Hollywood celebrities that I think could be intimidating for some, you know, to perform in front of. But like Ricochet was able to play with their reactions like a veteran, you know, like somebody you would have expected to have been playing heel for a long time. And I've been so impressed by him, you know, throughout this entire run. He looked like a star here.
Yeah. Swerve and on Dynamite, I thought Ricochet was the star of Dynamite on Wednesday. I just think he's so excellent in this character. And I mean, he is one that you can look at, like the move to AEW, how much he has elevated himself in this heel role. I just think he's done an excellent job. And coming out of this, like,
did you think you'd say all this after the first week?
The first week of the heel character, or the first week he was in AEW?
Of the heel character.
No, I would not have. He has certainly exceeded where I thought this was going to be kind of a mid-card kind of character for him.
Yeah, I thought the action was excellent. I loved all the spots involving the robe. You know, the fake out with leaving and returning, I thought made logical sense that like Nana would like try to play those games in order to try to sneak in to try to get it. I thought the tope from Ricochet to get the jacket back immediately was very well done. Tug of war to stop the spirit gun was also very well done too. And then playing with the tease of descent between Swerve and Nana. I mean, I don't know how much people necessarily bought, but I for moments bought it. You know, I thought there was a very good chance that we could have gotten the breakup here, and to see it just kind of maybe result in used for some near falls and to result in a continued reunion between the two, I thought was great. They blended the action really well with all the near falls. So my match of the night so far exceeded my expectations.
On to Kazuchika Okada and Brody King for the AEW Continental Championship, and King missed with a running crossbody into the rail and then hits a DDT. And man, Okada, his chest and bicep are all red from the attack by King in the first portion of this match. And this was just a very hard-hitting match. King kills him with this big lariat, but then Okada catches him with a belly-to-back neckbreaker, elbow off the top in the middle finger pose. And then King lands a cannonball. Okada backdrops him onto the edge of the apron and then grabs a chair, which Rick Knox removes, allowing Okada to use the belt shot and generates a 2 count. King counters the Rainmaker, Gonzo gets avoided, and then Okada lands the drop kick out of the corner, which sets up the Rainmaker, and he retains the belt in 10 minutes and 55 seconds in I thought for an Okada short match, like that has kind of been the struggle of like Okada doing some of these like sub 20-minute matches. And I thought this was a condensed 11-minute match that was all action. And typically Okada, it's like, these are the matches he struggles in, is some of these shorter matches, but I thought they did really well with the time they had here.
I thought it was good. I did find it maybe rather straightforward. Personally, I thought
It was.
I think King needed a big near fall for what felt like a big hometown match, similar to what like Buddy Matthews was able to get. I don't think the match got to the level perhaps it needed to in order for him to take that much value out of it, and maybe likely it was maybe too short to achieve that. However, I mean, if you're Okada, I think by this point you have to. I don't know if you can have that excuse that like we can only expect great performances from him when it's like 20 minutes plus. You have to be able to show that you can work any style of match. Certainly, but like a year into this run.
Yeah, I think this would have been a tremendous like Dynamite main event or Collision main event, and on this pay-per-view, I mean, this was going to be greatly exceeded by a lot of the surrounding matches, but it didn't overstay its welcome at 11 minutes. But I don't think you had any buy-in on Brody King in the lead up to this, and yeah, I wouldn't.
In the lead up, I mean, what was the Dynamite? NorCal somewhere? Sacramento. Like he got a great reaction there. So I mean, he got a good reaction here, but like I don't know if the match took it to the level that I think the crowd was wanting.
Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin against the Outrunners for the tag titles. We have Lio Rush and Action Andretti in the crowd, as well as CT Fletcher, which unfortunately he was not going to get involved in this one. They just murdered Truth Magnum at the beginning of the match. We build up to the tag to Turbo Floyd, and they hit the double bicep elbow drop onto Benjamin. Magnum then sends Lashley into the steps. Floyd turbos up with Benjamin, including a rope walk into an arm drag, when Lashley returns and is basically stating, all right, it's time to shut this down. And we get step up knees and spears to both men, and Floyd eats the pin in 8 minutes and 40 seconds in, I would say, a match that if you were hoping for one big near fall for the Outrunners or the crowd just gets into the underdogs, I didn't think they really reached that level. I thought this was probably the weakest match on the show.
Of all the matches maybe on the main card, I would probably suggest that this one maybe had the least reason to be on the pay-per-view. But I mean, we know the way like Tony likes to book, like maybe he thinks that people would complain that how could you not have the Hurt Business on the show? It ultimately ended up being like a fine exhibition. Gave the Outrunners, I think, an appropriate amount considering like the fact that they didn't even win this match, like to get into this through merit, like they kind of fluked into this. So I thought they gave them an appropriate amount. I also like thought the match showcased the role of MVP in the team pretty well, like being the guy to like motivate them to be more aggressive and to take this seriously and not take somebody like the Outrunners too lightly.
And then it was on to all of the big matches to go with the final four. Starting off with the Hollywood ending, the Falls Count Anywhere match between Timeless Toni Storm and Mariah May for the AEW Women's Championship. And out to call this match is Queen of the Ring executive producer Jim Ross. And Mariah May walks out, and she's got these white roses and a white veil. And she comes out. Toni Storm makes her entrance with Luther, and May just jumps her. And boom, the bell rings, and we had nonstop action. They were going to utilize every second of this match for maximum impact, and that's what we got, including Mariah May deciding, should I open this match up with a collar and elbow tie-up or a taser? And she pulls out the taser, but Luther takes the taser away, and May kicks him low and drop kicks him, sending him over this desk and plunging to his death for all we know.
Yeah, Luther was taken out by this, but man, I was focused more so on May.
She slipped as she was going for the drop kick, and this might have been Luther pretty much sending himself into Armageddon.
Like May ended up hitting the drop kick fine, but like even on landing that front drop kick on that hard surface on the ramp, man, that didn't look like it felt very good. And then they still had the rest of the sprint to go through.
This was just wild. Storm takes her off the stage with a sky high, putting them through a table before making their way ringside. Storm misses a hip attack into the guardrail, and May hits the Storm Zero onto the steps. And up comes Timeless Toni Storm auditioning for her next role in Carrie, as she is covered in blood. I cannot recall a blade job at this level in quite some time. This was like peak Vince McMahon when he would just like hit like a vein or something.
Certainly for a women's match, like I mean, I think back to Britt Baker, which, you know, prior to this might have been the most famous women's blade job certainly in AEW history.
May brings out these weapons from underneath the ring, and both have buckets with broken champagne bottles in them. And they do the spot from like the Taipei death matches where they tape their fists up and place broken glass on them and start just running at each other with strikes. Storm stabs May in the forehead with part of the champagne bottle, so May is now bleeding. And May uses a broken champagne bottle in between the legs of Toni Storm and then a stratisfaction onto the broken glass, followed by a Mayday for a 2 count. And I have it listed, this overhead shot of Toni Storm, which might be one of our images of the year, is surrounded by glass and completely covered in blood as the crowd chants AEW. Toni then gets the shoe as May runs for the entrance and gets stomped onto the belt at the stage. She then is whipped with the belt, and then the crowd is chanting shoe as Toni raises the shoe, but May suckers her with a Mayday for a big near fall. Storm then headbutts, drills her with the shoe over and over, and then puts her through a table with a Storm Zero to win this, all in 12 minutes and 55 seconds as JR proclaims, "Thank God it's over," as they are left on top of one another and they zoom out where the screen reads the end. And Storm at the end just hugs the lifeless Mariah May in this utterly spectacular match that Amazing. I thought was just the crescendo of this program for these two. I thought they had a pretty high bar to hit after Australia. They destroyed that bar for me. I think if you thought this was match of the show, you have a very strong argument for it. Like if you, in terms of just like a violent weapons oriented match with all this backstory, like this was, I don't know, like for this style of match, I think this was about every box being checked.
And matched with a bottle.
Yes.
I was one of those people who thought this was match of the night. And on a show with Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita and Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher and Swerve versus Ricochet, I never thought. Well, I thought there was maybe a chance, but I thought a very slim chance that a women's match. Let's be honest, like with much higher caliber, like star rated types of internet darlings would be able to outperform all of those people, and they achieved that. This was billed as a no DQ falls count anywhere match, but I think this could ultimately be remembered and classified as a death match. And I thought this was a great example of how artistic and cathartically gratifying death matches can be. They gave us a high level of risk and violence that I certainly did not expect coming out of, such a character driven, like over the top type of story. From the beginning, they went at such a crazy pace and just unloaded big spot after big spot after big spot. And it's just one of the nastiest blade jobs that I think I've ever seen in a women's match before. The duct tape glass fight leading to some amazing visuals from that overhead spot. And to me, okay, like I'm sure somebody stepping in would feel this was gratuitous, and I don't even know if I necessarily disagree, but the fact that this came at the final chapter, final meeting between two people coming off of a year-long storyline, to me justified it. This is when you pull out the stops. This is when you pull out the big blade jobs and like the shards of glass and everything else when you're trying to end such an epic story. I don't know if these two will ever have better opponents than with each other. And I feel like they recognize that. And that's why I think they poured as much as they did into it. Clearly, they took a lot of pride into the crafting this entire story. And they completely emptied the tank in making sure that this was a satisfying conclusion to it all.
I think there's also something to be said for this style of match being contained to 13 minutes, but it's like they're operating at a 10 for the whole 13 minutes that they go. And naturally, like this type of a match, it shouldn't be 30 minutes. Like this should be this is so violent, and it's just a matter of who is going to expire first. I thought this was outstanding. I just thought this was like these matches are not always going to be my favorite, but for this genre, this was incredible. I just thought, like, it was, by the end of the show, I thought it was my match of the show as well. Like, I just thought these two were fantastic. The crowd loved this. I thought JR added a lot on commentary for this as well. Just the whole thing, and this being the final chapter, it added like the significance of the end of really putting a punctuation mark on this program.
And we have to, of course, not just give credit to these two or the announcers, but the team that have put together this incredible story, including predominantly Tony Khan. I think we have to give credit to. If we're going to blame him for a lot of the top stories, we have to credit him for all the top stories, including this one, which is one of his finest works. RJ City, who we know, has contributed a lot, but like the thought that goes into, doing things like this culminating ending with this, the end, visual at the, to close off the show, I thought was just thematically perfect. And just, not to mention all the great videos that we had in the build up to all of this. Everything has just, a classic feud from AEW.
This is what they should have done with Mildred Burke and June Byers in 1954.
Maybe
should have been a Hollywood ending in Atlanta. Konosuke Takeshita and Kenny Omega. Could they follow that for the?
This AEW, is the cool down match.
The cool down match for the International Championship. Don Callis on commentary. So these final three matches, these were all going to. This was like going to a 10-course dinner, and the final three were going to be like these gigantic, heavy, carb-loaded meals coming your way, each going about 30 minutes. So Don Callis is on commentary, noting that Kenny Omega has a ticking time bomb in his intestine, and we don't know when it will explode. And from now until eternity, every story of every Kenny Omega match is this the opponent that is going to kill him? That's basically the story we have now. Every opponent is going for his gut, and will this man die?
My favorite was when Callis was saying, the part of his intestine that was taken out was the one that absorbs all the nutrients.
Like, thank you, Dr. Don.
Kenny can't absorb nutrients now.
No, he needs a special intake for nutrients. So Omega misses a high cross body, which lands right on the gut, and he's grabbing it. And Takeshita targets the body. Omega spikes Takeshita on the edge of the apron and goes for the you can't escape using the timekeeper's area, but gets shoved into another barricade with the midsection going down. Moments later, he manages you can't escape in the ring, and as he goes for the Terminator dive, Callis prevents it by grabbing the foot, and Takeshita clotheslines him to the floor. And we get a table that is brought out by Takeshita and is placed upside down, and Takeshita lifts him up like for a gourd buster and goes for the legs and just narrowly misses them as he's trying to impale Kenny Omega, and then suplexes him ribs first with the table on its side. And the crowd boos this. They don't want to see this man's intestine explode. What about his nutrients?
They didn't actually tipped it on its face. So the crowd was booing it, thinking that Kenny was taking the table out of play.
I thought they were just booing because they were. Well, this was right after he gets dropped onto the side of the table.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm getting confused because like earlier when Kenny flipped the table over, they were booing that.
Oh, okay. They may have been booing that.
They were booing Kenny when Kenny flipped the table over, and I played it back. And in seeing the whole spot in totality, it was clear Kenny wasn't trying to flip the table over. He was trying to flip it onto its side. Yes. And it happened to fall over,
right.
requiring Takeshita to redo the spot. And you could just like pause that moment looking in Kenny's face where he kind of recognized he screwed up and he didn't really know what to do because it wouldn't make sense for him to go back and put the table on its side, right? So I'm sure he just kind of had to communicate with Takeshita. So that was all kind of fun to maybe
come very close to dropping my sternum right onto the leg of the table. And
maybe that was the backup.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Omega comes back, hits a springboard Dr. Wily bomb, and then each of them go for one winged angels and cannot hit them. Takeshita hits a tombstone, then lifts him for a spinning bastard driver for a 2 count, follows with the power drive knee, then a second one, and Omega kicks out at 1, and this place goes insane. They get to their feet. This was where this crowd, like, they had been fine into the match, but this 1 count, it brought everyone to life, and Omega hits a poison Rana, a V-trigger, but then Don Callis holds on to Takeshita from the floor, and pulls him away. And then we get a one-winged angel and raging fire that are attempted. Each are avoided. And then Omega goes for La Magistral Cradle. Takeshita kicks out, and we get a scramble of roll-ups, and Omega catches him and wins in 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Big post-match celebration for Omega, and the announcers reflecting on his comeback being this signaling the full comeback that he has won a championship. I thought this was a really, really strong match, and it was totally different than what we just got and what we were about to get. It's actually in a very difficult spot on this show. On most, I would put this like very, very high up, but to me, it did not exceed the Hollywood ending.
No, it didn't. No. I just laugh because like we're talking about Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita being like quote unquote in the handicapped spot. If there's anybody who usually handicaps other people, it's these two. So if there's anybody who should be worthy of the challenge of following Toni Storm versus Mariah May, it would be these two. Now it's kind of very different because I kind of see this as like it is their third match, is it not?
Yes.
Yet it didn't feel like the culmination of any sort of like trilogy or anything. So like, in fact, like the finish kind of suggests that they're going to do another match because it was such a, toss up roll ups type of sequence. So it didn't have the finality attached to it that obviously the match prior did. But, when we're just strictly talking about action, like I think almost anybody could appreciate just the quality and the crispness of execution of everything here. Omega selling, I thought, was very well done. Overall, it was like a very simply laid out match. Omega selling the god, Takeshita targeting it, and it was great. It just happened to be sandwiched between like two of the bloodiest matches we've seen in quite some time. So I don't know if it leaves that much of as much of an impression, but it certainly does continue the streak of high quality on the show.
Yes, and that takes us to the steel cage match between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. And Will Ospreay comes out, but before his theme, we get some wild dubstep version to introduce his theme song. This was about 15 years too late.
Yeah, we're into Young Gravy now. Okay, Will, where have you been?
Yeah, this was something else. Yes.
Yeah, so, I didn't know what to really think of it. Again, yeah, I kind of had the same thought as you. I thought dubstep really had its maybe its peak in like 2011 or something like that. And this went long. Like it was a lot longer than I think an intro.
It was long enough that you were thinking, "My God, has he changed his theme and lost his mind?" But this was not the drum solo that Swerve had. So the two men stand on opposite corners of the cage as Kyle is plugging his ears while the crowd chants Ospreay. And they note that Kyle is wearing the same kick pads he wore at World's End that still have Will's blood over them. And as we would learn throughout the course of this match, we learned very much that Kyle has quite an obsession with Will's blood. Not just holding on to it on his clothing that he has not cleaned, but ingesting a grotesque amount of Will's blood throughout these next 30 minutes.
How do you top one of the biggest blade jobs we've seen in quite some time? You eat the blood. That's how we try to top it. Who can eat the most blood?
Yes, that was it. What diseases could we pass between one another?
Remember when we were social distancing? Remember that? Remember 6 feet apart?
No, I don't remember that. I think that the pandemic has ended in AEW. We can officially confirm that.
Those days are long gone, yeah.
So another part of this is that this is Will's first one-on-one match inside of a steel cage match. He did the United Empire farewell cage match in New Japan last year. So the man is not familiar with cage matches, and therefore he does a handspring, and the back of his calf goes into the fence, and he goes down like, ow, that really hurt. So we have established cage, bad, hurt. So Kyle then stops an os cutter and lawn darts Will into the cage, and this opens up Will, who decided, you know what, I'm going to try and reach Toni Storm levels. And Kyle rubs Will's face into the steel, putting his blood onto the fencing, and then Kyle starts licking the fence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ospreay chops him against the fence over and over while he's covered in blood and leaking on the mat. And we get an exposed buckle. Kyle goes for a brainbuster, but Will escapes. Cheeky Nando's kick connects and then catapults Fletcher into the cage. And then Will rams his head into the post in the corner repeatedly. So Kyle is now split open. And Kyle catches him with a last ride power bomb. We have a series of Kawada kicks that Ospreay just stands up from and blasts Kyle with a forearm, and they trade more licking of blood. Each take turn kicking each other in the head. And then Fletcher stops a Stormbreaker to land a brainbuster for a 2 count. And at this point, Mark Davis, he has made a decision, since Wednesday. He has decided, you know what? I gave up my power of attorney. I'm just going to make the best of this. I'm going to back this guy, Kyle Fletcher. I'm not going to be wavering anymore in the middle. So he comes out with his bag of tricks and bolt cutters. So he opens up the cage door, passes a chair to Kyle and the bag of weapons when Ospreay kicks the door into Davis's face. So Davis is unconscious for about 5 minutes, but more from him later. Ospreay goes into the bag of weapons and brings out a barbed wire bat, so starts nailing Kyle with it, grinding it, and then does a bang bang signal, a tribute to Chelsea Green. And then Kyle reveals the United Empire armband in his pants, presumably like right around his balls that he had been just keeping them all match long. And he uses this armband and the signal of United Empire to beg for mercy, and Will gives him the middle finger and then raises the barbed wire bat and gets hit right in the balls. Kyle then decides to wipe his blood all over the United Empire armband and stick the armband into Will's mouth. Digest my blood. And he then is hit with a hidden blade and the Stormbreaker, and you think that Will has it won when Mark Davis, who is also bleeding, you have to keep this straight of like what he has been hit with. He was hit with the door, so he comes in.
Let's mix all our blood together.
Let's like just all get communicable diseases between 3 of us. We're all best friends. So he applies a sleeper to Ospreay, and they go to deliver Coriolis, which Will turns into a poison Rana onto Fletcher somehow and hits a hidden blade into a chair into Davis's face. So Davis is now dead, and he is removed from the ring, and the door is relocked. He then scales the cage for a super os cutter, then wraps the barbed wire around his arm. Kyle is trying to escape, but he climbs to the top where a screwdriver has been secretly placed, and he grabs the screwdriver, stabbing Will in the forehead, then into the body, and then misses, stabbing the turnbuckle. Goes for a brainbuster, then hits one on the chair, which Will kicks out from. Then Kyle has a bag of tacks, and after avoiding a brainbuster onto the tacks, Kyle takes a Styles Clash onto the thumbtacks for this major pop, and Kyle kicks out of that. Kyle then climbs to the top of the cage. Will follows him with the screwdriver. They fight over the screwdriver. They headbutt one another, and then Will stands up. Kyle stands up, and you are thinking, oh my God, I hope his leg is free to extend out of this cage area. And he manages a one-man Spanish fly off the top of the steel cage. And these cages in AEW are very tall. This was crazy. Then they show the replay. Ospreay basically took this on his hip as well, and did not look fun. And the final sequence is Kyle with his last remaining breath screaming, I hate you. I fucking hate you. Fuck you, you son of a bitch. And he is hit with a hidden blade, followed by the Tiger Driver 91. We went from Coriolis to paralysis. And Will pins him in 29 minutes and limps to the back, probably selling nothing as he is grabbing his side. And Kyle is left for dead here in the middle of the ring. Both men having their blood running through the other man's veins by the end of this story.
And Mark Davis is in there as well. I mean, it was an incredible match. First of all, I do want to correct myself because Takeshita and Omega have had now 2 singles matches in AEW. Takeshita pinned Omega twice. Once was in a tag team match. So they are 1-on-1. So they are probably setting up for a rubber match. This was a rubber match, right? The end of at least this iteration of a trilogy between these two. So again,
That they've acknowledged, yeah.
I think that would justify all they did here. The amount of blood, I did, I thought was warranted for the most part, but I thought Mark Davis's was certainly unnecessary. Like, I know he got hit by the cage, but doesn't mean he needs to come in with blood. He, to me, added nothing by bleeding. But if their aim was to achieve this sort of level of tension and grossness, they certainly achieved that. I think blood licking is so gross. It's just the AEW allows that. You could drink blood.
Who's your worst enemy? Would you like? I don't even know what the message is to them. Like, if
I mean, you know, I hate you so much. I want to taste your blood. Like, meaning, like, I want you to bleed. Because I love the sight of you bleeding because I don't want you to live. You know, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you lick it, and it's like that's on you, man. Like,
well,
it's not crazy. I'm not crazy
John,
about you.
This was a rubber match, okay? Come on. If we went to war 2 times and we each won a match apiece, and for our third match, I'm probably gonna want to drink your blood, I guess. But this also felt like the end of a big program between these two, and it resulted in these two throwing everything that they had inside this cage to give you that sort of feeling. I thought that Spanish Fly was so crazy, John. Like, and it was the sort of tension that we had where I don't get the sense that, like, the audience was so much watching it as part of the story as much as we were tense because we didn't want these two people to die. Like, it was the feeling that we had maybe when Shane McMahon was up on the top of the Hell in a Cell, where, like, he took a lot of time, and we kind of wanted him to take a lot of time before he did the jump because we wanted to make sure he lived, right? You kind of, like, you're worried because on the one hand, you're very excited that you're about to see a spectacular move, but on the other hand, you could be witnessing somebody, like, falling to their death.
Well,
anyway.
just the idea, like, if one of their, like, foot gets like caught on something,
or
like
slips on their blood,
anything could happen.
They're lightheaded because they've lost so much blood.
Yeah. Lots of things could happen when you have another man's blood going through your veins.
But if there's, like, we have to say this, Kyle Fletcher, as a personality and as a character, has been amazing throughout this all of this. As a talent, he already feels like he has all the skills that you would want out of a top player. He's somebody where if the next day, like, Tony wanted to belt him, you know, be the guy to actually take the belt off of Moxley. I mean, whatever. Like, it's in the near future. I think most of us would accept it because he's already shown that he's more than capable of a high pressure role.
Yeah, I mean, this was spectacular. It was not my favorite type of match, and I know that's kind of contradictory when I'm talking about, like, Toni Storm and Mariah May. That I just
So what was the difference to you?
I thought for this one, it wasn't even so much the violence. The violence I expected, and it's like to that degree. I just thought for 29 minutes, it was just going to. You're trying to heighten and heighten and heighten and heighten, and there is a certain level of just detachment that you do reach when you're just reaching these, like, superhuman feats that are taking it, to me, a little bit away, where it's suddenly you're observing a spectacle and a performance rather than the idea of, like, just this high caliber street fight that we got that just was, you know, more condensed. But I mean, this, I'm not downgrading that this was a spectacular match.
Would you have enjoyed this more if it happened on a different show separate from the Hollywood ending?
I don't feel like it's, like, I'm not of the idea that you can only do one type of match on one show. But I do feel there is a danger when you load up these shows such as AEW. This has been their calling card, is that when you're doing this, I think most importantly, it's like, can you continue to top yourselves when you're doing a card like this? And we had a main event to follow. I more so looked at, like, this main event after kind of paid the price of being a match that I just don't think that the crowd could get themselves back to this level after seeing so much of this on the card, because the crowd loved this and the crowd loved the Toni Storm Mariah May match. Like, I don't think either match suffered being on the same card as each.
I think Tony's after the feeling that like he wants you to be overwhelmed with like amazing stuff, right? Like that to me, I think is Tony's like
he wants you to
favorite.
go home after the 10-course meal and you can't eat till Tuesday.
Yeah. He wants you to feel like you got more than your money's worth and that you know over delivered. He over delivered on expectations. So rather than one incredibly bloody and very satisfying match, gives you two of them. I ultimately appreciate that as somebody like as a consumer. I do also think though I would be plenty satisfied if I just even, you know, like if this was spaced out in some way and that maybe like a match like this, for instance, might have been saved for a dynasty just so that we can maybe have the two of them maximize their values, I suppose. But again, I mean, this worked, you know, like how could it not have? At this point, we're just kind of nitpicking on like how could we have like maybe even enhanced something like this. But I'm sure to most who are watching it, including myself, like I was tremendously entertained. This 3-match like streak of the Hollywood ending, Konosuke Takeshita versus Omega, and this, like if Tony's idea was to make you like inspire the feeling of wow, like I can't believe AEW has this much to offer. This sort of 3-match run absolutely.
No, this stretch of like the hour 45, whatever these 3 matches lasted, were incredible, and we're not even including like Swerve and Ricochet. To me, was like that's a match of the night on most shows, and we're probably talking at that as number 3 or 4 on this show. Like that was the depth of this show. Also worth noting is that coming out of this show, we had really strong babyface wins for Hangman Page, Swerve, Omega, and Ospreay. And while Omega is sort of probably going to be off defending his international title, like you've created, like, yes, Swerve is the number 1 contender, but you have several big baby faces. And I think that's something that a lot of people have been looking at, like the major baby faces all now kind of being slotted for big title challenges to come over the coming months.
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you think of the show? Thumbs up?
You missed the main
event.
Oh,
I scrolled down. Oh, I have another page here. Well, how do you follow a 29-minute bloodfest? Ash Avildsen is back with Tony Schiavone. This man literally had nothing more to say. And Tony had nothing to ask him either. Ash basically sends it off to Damaris Lewis and Kelly Berglund to give you one final plea. Please go watch our film. We worked really hard on it.
This was a really strange segment, and I don't exactly know what happened here because like Tony is purely talking to Ash Avildsen, and I don't know if he was supposed to introduce the two women, but like they had a key ready.
Ash had to introduce them.
Yeah, and so Ash instead like is trying to direct attention to the two women who actually have something to say. I don't know what happened here. I don't know if like Tony was just kind of caught off guard late or like maybe somebody didn't give him the names and he didn't know how to introduce them. I don't know, but it was super awkward. And Damaris Lewis, who Kate did a great job. I really enjoyed her interview with Karen Peterson on Monday, by the way. Damaris Lewis says the one thing he has to say to about wrestlers is, y'all know you're going to win before anyone else does. So thank you for teaching me that. Now, I think I understand what she's trying to say. She's trying to say like, as a pro wrestlers have great confidence in themselves, and you know, you've taught me to believe in myself as a winner. But how it came across to me was, you know, your matches are predetermined, and therefore, thank you for teaching me that wrestling matches are predetermined. Whatever. Like, I don't know if it necessarily landed with the crowd. Is all I'm trying to say, because it wasn't met with any sort of reaction. And I wondered if others were perhaps as taken aback or confused by what she was trying to say as I was.
Well, we got plenty of promotion for Queen of the Ring on this particular show. So, I mean, we'll see how these next 4 days go.
Yeah. Are you going to watch?
I've seen the movie.
Oh, you have?
I did.
What'd you think?
See the movie. I thought that overall it was. I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. There were historical inaccuracies that a movie like this is obviously going to have. Number one, the actress that plays Mildred Burke, I thought was really great. And honestly, she's not winning an Oscar for this, but I've got to say, like as much as Toni Storm has been focused on, and Naomi's got a minor role in it, like Camille is like has a serious role as June Byers. And, she's someone that, got a lot of criticism for her AEW run and not being like this real character that I think came through. I thought she did very well, given that she was given like the bulk load of what any of the female wrestlers had. Like she was like the foil for as June Byers. Like she was given a lot in this film. So I thought that part was interesting to watch as well.
So recommended.
I think you should definitely watch it, especially if you've ever read the book and you can. They do a fairly good job of retelling the story with like minor issues along the way. But in terms of like, it's not like they're just totally taking stuff out of whole cloth and completely changing it. Like the story alone is, if you've read Queen of the Ring, Jeff Lean's book, like it's already a pretty like amazing story right there. Like it does lend itself for a movie. But I will chat about.
You should have been on the 0 hour, John, because I think you did a way more effective job of promoting this movie.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they would have had time. Me and Young Gravy could have done a review, potentially. But Neil Flanagan and I will be doing a book review of Queen of the Ring later this month, so we'll probably chat about the film as well. On to the final match of the night is Jon Moxley and Cope for the AEW World Championship. Jim Ross is back. Cope comes out, and the crowd sings his theme. Not quite at the volume of Australia, but they were trying their best. It was also very late in the night. And Jon Moxley comes out solo. Everyone has left him or abandoned him. And the match begins, and we just get the lengthiest forearm battle as they are just going back and forth, back and forth. And Moxley has declared he will break Cope's neck. And he rams Cope into the post on the floor, hits a reverse neck breaker. I'll be charitable and say the crowd was hushed. They were stunned at what they were seeing. And it's all damage to the neck. Moxley is telling Jim Ross, this is coming full circle for you. You saw the beginning of his career. Now you'll see the end of it. And then we just go to a shot of the Ops, who are still here in their same spots as they were on the 0 hour, just taking in all of this. And they mention, well, the Death Riders also have the trios belts, none of whom are here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get that connection, but I mean, yeah.
The holders of the belt are all incapacitated,
fine,
so
yeah,
I don't know what they're studying or scouting here.
Mm-hmm.
Cope finally hits an impaler DDT for a bit of a reprieve, applies the grindhouse, which is his crossface, 0 heat for this, and we get a rope break. Cope then spears Moxley off the apron to the floor. The crowd did react to that, and then Cope gets sent into the steps, and Moxley announces he's going home in a wheelchair as he removes the padding on the floor, but Cope manages a back body drop. Moxley stops a spear with a kick and then stomps Cope onto the floor and applies a bulldog inside. But Cope fights and fights it, ends up getting to the rope, and Bryce is getting into Mox's face. And when Moxley grabs a chair, Bryce takes the chair, and this allows Moxley to then what does he do here? When Bryce removes the chair, Cope gets knocked into the referee, so Bryce is now dead. In come more chairs, and as Moxley is going for a concerto, Mox gets kicked in the face with one of the chairs, and now Yuta walks down, and he's looking at Jon Moxley, and then he turns his hips, does the classic Vince Russo, and nails Cope with the Busaiku knee. But we get the close-up of Yuta that's just, I want to be free, but I can't do it. Wonderful acting here. And
I didn't think this was effective at all. Like, I mean, he did the turn, like the angle didn't really have enough time to simmer. Like, I think they needed several storyline like points where Yuta might have looked like he was close to defecting, and you could have had Copeland.
We had 3 days of where he was being like really like being pushed to the limit by Moxley, and I agree it was just not enough time to really resonate that this was any kind of expectation of anything big. They're explaining it's Stockholm Syndrome as he passes the briefcase to Moxley when Jay White comes out attacking Yuta, and then he takes the briefcase. Moxley ducks, and Jay White nails Cope with the briefcase. So while not a turn by Jay White, definitely a plot point that will be followed up on. So Yuta removes Jay White, and we're back to just the two of them. And Cope lands a spear for a 2 count, then lands 2 more spears when Bryce goes to count, and Christian in a hoodie yanks out Bryce, and he signs his Casino Gauntlet contract, and it is made into a three-way as Cage spears Cope for a 2 count, hits a kill switch, but then as he goes for the cover, Moxley comes back from the dead, applying a bulldog choke onto Cage. Cage is grasping. He tries to put his hand on top of Cope for the cover, and I'm just thinking this would be the worst finish in the world. Hold my beer. And then he pulls Cage's arm away, and Cage taps out, and you have a crowd that is just thinking...
I think he passed out.
Oh, you're right. He didn't tap out. He passed out at 26 minutes and 32 seconds, and Moxley retains the title. And this felt like a crowd that did not feel satisfied with this ending. And as Moxley is walking away, Jim Ross mentions, Moxley kind of came into this match as a slight underdog. Like, yes, our slight underdog heel wins the title.
Was that true from what, like betting odds?
I don't know. True? I don't know what the
okay,
whether he was or not. I thought this was a very overall flat main event with a flat finish, and more so just confirmation that this Casino Gauntlet contract was all right. We put it on the wrong guy. Let's just end this. Thankfully, they did have a great scene to end the show, which was Prince Nana walking up to Moxley. Security follows, and then they zoom out, and there is Spider-Man on top of the balcony coming off with a Swerve stomp onto Moxley, and the crowd kind of went nuts here for Swerve. So that looks to be Dynasty in a couple of weeks, and it did at least send the crowd home happy, but I can't say this main event was all that... It certainly did not follow what preceded it, and I think the crowd just felt like the finish was just an out to protect Cope, and I just thought it was not that great.
Yep, that's okay to say. Yeah. I thought as a match, it obviously suffered from both the match order and the style of matches that preceded it and the level of interest overall in the feud. And you know what? As a main event, I don't know if it has those excuses because the main event should be able to overcome anything else on the show, right? But the style of match they chose for this one, I actually thought it started off well, with the strong style forearm brawl, like the idea of following all of this crazy blood use with a very simple exchange of one move kind of captivated me. But it was again like very simple story here. Like it's Mox focusing on the neck, but I don't think there was enough, not even violent stuff done, but like I would say even creative stuff done to really keep my attention. I thought they went too long with it overall.
This was the match that deserved like a lot of violence. Like for the buildup of this guy's taking out your stablemates. The Moxley is threatening to break your neck and compromise your remaining family life. I mean, this one should have been, I think, much more violent. Like it was methodical with the neck stuff, but I mean, we're just an hour removed from a guy getting his intestine, his nutrient replenishing intestine.
So who do you blame?
I thought that
who do you blame for that? Do you blame the person? Do you blame them for not doing enough violent stuff, or do you blame the people who put this collection of matches together?
I think that you could have followed the prior matches, and I think this could have
with
been
blood use. With like those types of spots in this.
I mean, you could certainly argue that by the point you're relying on it for this main event, that then it becomes a real issue of excessiveness, especially when it's. I don't know how you could follow Fletcher and Ospreay doing a similar style match, but this was the result of following that, and this was kind of a blood feud with Cope and Moxley, and quite honestly, this should have been the priority match. This was your main event.
Yeah, I guess that depends on who you ask. Because like, then do you save Ospreay Fletcher for another show, or do you have that match not be as violent as it was?
Right. I mean, maybe you put it earlier in the show, and Omega Takeshita is your setup for this.
I don't think there's an easy answer to it all. I think no matter what, like this match would have suffered.
Listen, we don't have to overanalyze. This should have been a better match, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Well,
like that's it. This was not. I think
it's not just the match; it's the interest in the match and interest in the feud overall that I think probably affected it as well. It's all those factors, John. But I thought the neck injury overall was well worked and sold really well. I just didn't think the pace of action was going to engage this crowd after all that they had seen. But the crowd never turned on it. They just like didn't react as much as you would think they would for a main event. They were respectful, but a lot of the near falls that they were setting
it was
up,
very quiet for an AEW title match for a 30-minute main event. It is like, dude, for a lot of this, it was like sitting on hands. It was
a lot of the big near falls that they were setting up were certainly lacking. Because either the crowd weren't impressed or just they simply wanted to go home. Technically, I thought the match was good, but I thought it ultimately failed as a main event. Like the stuff with Christian, I actually liked it. Like to me, it offered a nice bit of surprise that you could kind of leave the match with, of like where you felt you got some sort of value rather than just a straightforward, non-title change. I thought it it made sense to me with Christian wanting to specifically win the title off of Cope, who he might think would be an easier win than beating Moxley, for instance. But by the end, you keep the title on Moxley. You get rid of this stupid contract gimmick that should have never went to Christian in the first place. So it's good to see Tony Khan come to his senses about that rather than actually possibly maybe at one point giving the title to Christian, which I think would have been the worst decision this company could have made. It protects Copeland, but I almost see that as a side effect because I think the main priority is to take us to Copeland versus Christian coming out of all of this. And also, of course, keeping the belt on Moxley so that he can face Swerve, he could face Hangman, he could face, potentially Ospreay, Omega,
Yeah, with the Christian stuff for me, I think from a storyline perspective, I think Christian just looked really silly when. Why would you not wait till after the match when these two guys have killed each other and you have one
They've
target?
already killed each other, plenty.
Well, you put yourself into this three-way where you had the match won and the third participant ended up submitting you, as opposed to wait till after and you have a one-on-one match with a person that's been
If Adam
destroyed.
Copeland was there and Moxley won, Adam Copeland would have still stopped Christian and vice versa. Whoever was going to be the third man. Christian picked this opportunity because he thought Copeland was easier to beat than Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley was incapacitated at that particular moment. I thought that made sense.
Well, this was a contract that was won in August, so this was our payoff to it. And I think the audience, they just felt like this was like just a way to get out of this match without beating either guy.
I think that's a side effect. I don't think any of us can disagree that Christian should have never had that, And like at that point when Christian won it, like did Tony know that well, he certainly knew he should have expected Swerve and Ospreay to be and Page perhaps to be.
Listen, that was the same night Danielson won the title, and when Danielson's out date is. It's only like 6 weeks later that you're putting the title on Moxley. So I mean,
Christian was also a lot hotter, I would say, maybe for a brief time there as well. It was the wrong decision. Either way.
If we're going with that, then all right, they got rid of this contract and they sewed up that storyline aspect. I don't think it added anything to me. I was disappointed overall with the main event. I thought that was kind of a low. I thought the lowest point of the main show mainly. No, I won't say that. I thought the tag title match was the worst match on the main card. Yeah, but this title match did not lift it. That said, I'm still giving this a massive thumbs up because there were some utterly incredible matches on this show for these 4 hours that I can't imagine you would be leaving this show unhappy with your purchase.
It was a good 12-match card that could have been a great 5 to 6 match card.
Well, that's never happening in AEW land. It's they do not believe in less is more. It is 13 matches. Like
when you condense this to this is a double album that should be maybe an EP. Well, I'll say a single album, okay? Like if you cut out the fluff, I think the overall experience to me would be a lot more positive about it all. And this wasn't even a show that felt too long, but when I just look back on it, I was very entertained. I was satisfied, but I'm also left talking about some of the negatives on the show when I think like this could have been a show with no negatives whatsoever.
I don't disagree with you. I think that there is obviously a thought that when people are spending $50, they want the idea is we give you all of our stars. And we do know that, yes, we could give you a great kick-ass 8-match card, but what would the reaction be if there was not an Ospreay on this show, for instance, or there wasn't this person or this person? There would be that complaint that you're not getting this is what an AEW pay-per-view is now. You get all of these big stars, and there's even stars that we can't put on, that we can't even fit on with all of this. So I don't disagree with your premise. So that was AEW Revolution, and
we got
overall,
some super chats.
We do have super chats, so let us hear what everyone had to say about the show.
T. Anthony Odd sends $2 to say happy belated birthday to the one big Johnny P.
Thank you very much, T. Anthony.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anthony, for that. Let's go to Soren, who sends $5. Thank you very much, Soren. He says, I'll never forget the last time John tried to take a vacation. He thinks it might have been for an anniversary. And then Vince McMahon resigning, that news hit. I hope this vacation was better. Was there any big news stories while you were away? Well, there's a big... Did you have you caught up on Elimination Chamber yet? I don't want to spoil it for you.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it was okay show. Kurt Angle sends $5. It's true. Welcome back, John. Good to see you.
All right, I appreciate people. You definitely do not need to spend money just to welcome me back, but appreciate it nonetheless,
I think you do actually. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Honestly, thank you for all of you guys watching us live. Please like the video if you're watching us live on YouTube. Really helps us out. We're small, independent production. All right, you have 4 days left to watch this. All right, we're begging you, please watch our YouTube channel and support.
Yes, go to the box office, postwrestlingcafe.com.
That's right.
Where Way and I will talk this week.
Yes, we will
talk in person. I think
I'm gonna get caught up with John about his vacation, and I expect this to be a good one.
Okay.
Forum.postwrestling.com.
We start off with Cody from Maine. Revolution lived up to the high expectations and will be tough to beat for show of the year. Was this show of the year, Way?
I'm gonna have to. I'm terrible at that. But I think it's in contention so far. Yeah. What about you?
I think it'll be up there. I think that early on this year, I would say that the candidates are that New Beginning show, Elimination Chamber, and this one would be there too. I think those are the three early leaders for the week.
I think this would be an easier pick if it didn't have some of the fat attached to it.
Well, he goes on to state that while I enjoyed the matches and I'm happy for Momo, Brody King, and the Outrunners to get a pay-per-view showcase, those matches and this event would have benefited from them being TV main events. When the crowd has moments of recharging during the cage match, when they're very tired for nearly the entirety of the main event, that's the audience saying the show is too long. For the main event, at the very least, the crowd was there for the final 5 minutes, and while I understand the pushback towards the Death Rider story, it's best that the world title program isn't Cope Cage in 2025. That said, the conclusion of the star-making programs for May and Fletcher, a fantastic showdown between two AEW originals in Page and MJF, and the rise of Swerve back into the title picture made this event more than worth the price of admission.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go up next to this person whose real name is Matthew, who says, fun show. Did not imagine leaving this evening being mostly happy with the ending and excited to see the next chapter of the main event, but here we are. For some reason, Cope's face reminded me of the movie version of Sonic the Hedgehog a lot tonight. I think it made me like him more. Maybe it's the hairstyle he currently has. He kind of has hair like Sonic.
It's an interesting look that he had. Very un-Hangman like.
Yes.
Maybe he needs a perm.
Copeland? Cope?
Yeah. I don't think he can manage a perm.
No. What character does Hangman look more like?
In Sonic?
Yeah. Is there a character with that sort of hair?
I don't know. Tails? I have no idea. Next, we go to Jordan from the Bronx. Show of the year contender. Every match either ended a major feud or built up someone to the next level. There were many match of the night contenders, but I'll go with May versus Storm. It was brutal and beautiful all at the same time. Over a year of investment into these ladies culminated in a fantastic plunder match with a great presentation. Swerve feels like the guy who should win the belt from Moxley. He and Ricochet were outstanding. Hangman feels poised for something, but it's hard to tell what it is. Finally, I enjoyed the celebrity involvement in this show as compared to WWE. At times, WWE feels like they paid the celebrities to be there for a photo op. On this show, the celebrities felt like they truly wanted to be there and were enjoying the show. Well, maybe except for that actress who just learned that wrestling is predetermined and had to tell the world.
Yeah, again, I don't think that's what she meant, but it was sort of weird that how it came out. And yeah, let's go to Tony Dublin, who says, amazing what can happen when a wrestling show presents wrestling. Bell to bell, fantastic. Will Fletcher match as a stand-up for me. Seemed as though tonight served as a way to get that contract off a Cage without fulfilling its promise. I'm glad it's out of play, but feels as if they never had a plan with it. Yeah. Maybe at some point the plan was to actually give Christian the championship. I have to think that was the point, if he won the contract. But
maybe this was the plan.
To lead up to this particular moment, just who knows? Who knows? Maybe.
Brian in New Jersey, incredible show overall. I'll get my biggest negative out of the way. The event still had the main event problem of World's End, and that match was the biggest slog of a match I've seen since the main event tag of night 1 of WrestleMania last year. You had other candidates to close the show, and the work throughout wasn't that good. At least things shook up in the end with Jay White's non-turn involvement. Christian Cage finally executing the Casino Gauntlet contract, and Moxley killing 2 Canadian birds with 1 stone. Then after a swerve as a concept, we get Swerve the Man to build up that Dynasty main event. Omega and Takeshita was my match of the night, followed by Ospreay Fletcher. Combined with Ricochet versus Swerve, Hangman versus MJF, and Storm versus May, this was a show well worth watching. I think things are laid out for Omega versus Okada at All In Texas, as teased at World's End, and as a title unification match, as I've seen rumored. I'm hot and cold about 2 bloodbaths on the same show, but they were major feuds with definitive ends, and I hope Ospreay, Fletcher, Storm, and May don't have to bleed this much for a long time.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope Kyle Fletcher doesn't have to drink so much blood in a long time. We go to Ben from Vancouver. Outstanding show, but overall the main event failed to deliver. Match of the night was Toni versus Mariah, and it was so good that it took a while for the crowd to warm up to Omega versus Takeshita. Ricochet, Swerve, MJF, Hangman, and Ospreay Fletcher were all great, and they have to find a way to move all 6 of those people onto significant follow-up programs. The Omega win foreshadows an Omega Okada title unification at All In. The main event was a mess, and it makes you question why Cage was given the briefcase to begin with. Question, what is next for MJF? Such a rare, clean loss for him.
What I would like to see from MJF is him in the Owen Hart Cup, and he faces Jeff Jarrett, and that's when they do their match. That could even be the final.
Oh, that's a great idea.
But I think they should meet in the tournament. That was my thought.
And who ends up winning?
MJF wins.
Yeah, I like that too. And then MJF goes on to main event All In.
I don't think that's the worst idea. If you're in the position that he gets to go back to All In, I just think the idea of doing Jarrett and MJF, I think they will get to that match, and I think it's most valuable in the Owen. And you've even established it already with him bringing up Owen's name to Jarrett, and you can do that match, but don't just throw it away for some pay-per-view. Or I think it's most valuable in that tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Sal from California. I flew down to LA for Revolution and had so much fun watching the show live. I've been to the last 3 Revolution shows, and this was top to bottom probably the best. I'll keep my thoughts brief because I drank a bit too much. Food of the night was the Doritos veggie dumplings from Crypto Arena. I regrettably bought a cowboy shit hat, which I'll be too shy to wear anywhere except for an AEW show. The Mariah May Toni Storm match was probably the wildest match I've ever seen live until the Ospreay Fletcher cage match topped it. 2 unbelievable matches. The crowd was pretty flat for Moxley and Cope until Christian showed up for the cash-in. The crowd near me was chattering about how they were uninterested in the title match. Swerve cut a promo in the ring after the pay-per-view feed ended and told Cope he would take the responsibility of beating Cope. He probably means Mox here. Yeah, he had been drinking. He did preface. The crowd was very hot for Swerve to end the show. I'm on my way out of the arena. Don't worry, I'm not driving, but I hope you guys enjoyed the show and John enjoyed his vacation. Well, thank you so much, Sal. For someone that noted he had been drinking, that was a very well-written piece of feedback and great insight into the live experience.
Somebody out there, come on, wear your cowboy shit hat freely, all right? It's fine. It's fine. What's the worst that can happen? You're doing your groceries and you're wearing a cowboy shit hat. Don't be embarrassed. Come on.
You should be pretty embarrassed if you wear that hat, but you can do so with pride. I mean, you're not Tony Cavallero getting into the ring with the remember that time in RoboCop when he shot someone in the dick shirt.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Did you see that? Okay.
Well, at a wrestling show, you could really wear anything. Let's go to Megan, who says, Revolution had a lot to like. Act 3 of Toni and Mariah was movie magic and vivid, violent Technicolor. Hangman's redemption arc continues to gain steam. Ospreay Fletcher was maximalist mayhem. Omega Takeshita was fantastic. I was waiting for some alliteration there. Colt Moxley failed to stick the landing. Swerve being next in line telegraphed the outcome. Christian losing his title shot could be the catalyst to get him and Colt back together. Interesting.
Christian losing his title shot would be the catalyst to get him and Colt back together. Maybe I don't know if that is.
I think
catalyst.
He means a feud. I don't know if I could see them.
Oh yeah, get them. Back on track. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I definitely expect that.
I think so too. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your thoughts on what was a generally well-received pay-per-view.
I would say very well received. Yeah.
Yes. It was a very strong show from AEW. Some excellent wrestling matches on the show. Maybe some fat that you could trim out, but overall, I thought it was an enjoyable 4 hours or so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Well, Wei, this has been fun.
Yeah. Happy belated birthday at this point, John.
You don't have to wish me a happy belated birthday. It's over now. It's just a day in the past now.
Did you have a good day?
I had a fine day. Yes.
Okay, good.
It was kind of low key.
I'll ask you all about maybe your birthday week on our edition of Talk this coming.
It was Tuesday. It was a wild birthday week. Yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, tomorrow night we are back because Raw is at Madison Square Garden, which we have CM Punk against Seth Rollins in a top this steel cage match. Do you think any blood is going to be leaking into people's bullets?
Do I expect somebody to be drinking somebody else's blood on Raw on Netflix? I don't think so. No.
Oh, that's man. They have quite the act to follow after tonight with a cage match. Yes.
Hey, Slim Sieber does bring it up. Of course, John. We once you get around to watching Elimination Chamber, it would be lovely to get your thoughts on the big stories coming out of that pay-per-view. Maybe tomorrow.
We'll probably talk about it tomorrow. Right. Tonight's very AEW.
No, not tonight. Not tonight.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we're going to wrap things up. We're back Monday night for Rewind to Raw, and big week coming ahead at postwrestlingcafe.com, including a new installment of Talk with myself and Mr. Ting dropping this Tuesday. So that is it for us. Thank you for tuning in to our AEW Revolution post show.